There were 3 of them in the office, and as many humans as well. One of the fads was typing furiously on a holographic keyboard that hovered in front of her. The other 2 were tossing a holographic football back and forth. Either the game of football was of evil phatic origin, or the invaders had taken a liking to it. I wasn't sure which was more likely.
Human juveniles may only enter this restricted space with permissions from a designated authority figure, and in the presence of a designated order enforcer of no less than level 6,
said the typing fad, not looking up from her keyboard. Her squarish, gray-skinned face was crinkled in concentration, her tusks jutted out over her lower jaw as she scraped at the bottom lip with her teeth.
Your identification auras are not emitting any permission, and I see no order enforcer. Thus, I am forced to conclude you have made an error and entered the wrong room.
It's surprising these creatures ever enter the right room, said one of the ball tossers. His big orc-like body seemed to have been made for football. Their brains are less formed than even our adolescents.
They appear to be in a perpetual state of confusion,
agreed the other as he caught the football.
But the adults are hardly better, though she's all right.
He gestured with his head towards a big picture of Nora Price scowling down at us.
One of the few bearable ones,
the other agreed.
Why did we invade this ridiculous world anyhow?
I just have a question, I said, trying to cut in.
Your question can wait until your identification aura emits the correct permission,
said the typing fad.
Until that time, your questions will go unanswered.
Sad, really, said the fad, tossing the football. All those questions that will never be answered.
Keeps me up at night,
said the one catching the ball.
Where do the unanswered questions go?
Then none of them were saying anything, because they were first twitching and then unconscious. The humans in the room had been silent the whole time, and now they were even more silent because, like the fads, they were unconscious. I closed and locked the office door, while Alice generated a holographic keyboard with which to interface with the main phatic computer network. There were multiple layers of encryption, but having a maxed-out security-busting skill tree meant she could eat through those firewalls in seconds and enter the secure database in the system without triggering any alarms. In about 30 seconds, she shut down her keyboard.
I know where they're being held, and while I was there, I got the coordinates for the prison where they've got Niana and the others. We're set.
We all exchanged looks. This was too easy. I knew that the former enhancements we'd picked up at the Hidden Fortress were going to make our task possible, but I never thought it was going to be this uncomplicated. Getting Tamrat and the others, stealing a ship, rescuing the political prisoners, and getting the galaxy back on track was going to be a piece of cake. Then, Tanner Hughes kicked open the door. Behind him stood about 20 other trustees, all of them armed with phatic, phased particle beam pistols. And they opened fire. Big deal. There was some redundancy, since we hadn't had a chance to work out a routine. Things could have gone badly, which I realized even as they were going well, and I vowed that we would have to assign tasks in the future. Fortunately, there would be a future, since in spite of the lack of planning, we had all bases covered. Charles, Alice, and I triggered plasma shields, establishing a blue barrier between us and the fad wannabes, firing their PPBs. The phased particles were handily absorbed, leaving them astonished, disappointed, and a little bit afraid. They were right to be afraid. Mi-sun, the most intuitive fighter in our group, must have assumed one of us would handle defense. Either that, or she was just acting on instinct. A second or two behind us, she unleashed a barrage of voltage, stunning the entire group. Problem solved. 1 second you've got a bunch of thugs with energy weapons, the next you've got a big pile of nappers. With our data in hand, escaping was no more difficult than stepping over the sleeping adversaries. I grabbed some of the PPB pistols, you never know when they might come in handy, and then paused briefly over the slumped form of Tanner Hughes. He was wearing new sneakers he'd picked up from somewhere, but he still had oil stains all over his rear. I crouched over him and quickly cooked up a set of nanites, which I injected into his neck. Just like that, he would now be unable to control his bladder. Instant pants wetter. You cross me, you pay. I'm not entirely cruel, so I programmed the nanites to self-destruct after 2 days, but by then he'd be the laughingstock of the phatic empire. Assuming there still was a Phatic Empire, because Team Randoms was on fire. I wasn't the only one feeling big on our new tech. There were smug nods and fist bumps all the way around as we casually walked down the stairs, passing students and teachers. Most of the trustees had been summoned to deal with us, and no one had noticed they hadn't yet returned. The Fads, from my experience, favored overwhelming force as a military tactic, and they didn't tend to worry that their forces might fail. Soon, they would realize they were facing a genuine danger, and they would up their game in response, but they had no game that could beat ours, I told myself. We could block any assault they threw at us. We could stop any beings who challenged us. We could become invisible, or invulnerable, or unstoppable, and all it took was the desire to make it happen. "It is a good thing none of us are evil," Charles said, evilly. He had evidently been thinking along the same lines as me. "We are almost too powerful." "The Formers had all of this and more," I said, "and they didn't turn evil. They created worlds and life. They paved the way for galactic civilization." "And where are they now?" Mi-san asked. It was a good question. The fact was that no one knew what had happened to the Formers. Some thought they had left the galaxy entirely, finding new and, to our minds, inconceivable methods of travel that would allow them to cross incredible distances. Others claimed they had set aside the need for material bodies entirely, and now existed as beings of pure energy, or at the quantum level, experiencing life with an entirely new set of physical realities. Then, there was the school of thought that said they had become so powerful that they had experienced so much, they grew tired of existence and allowed themselves to fade from reality. Personally, I found this possibility depressing. I couldn't imagine ever growing tired of my new abilities, and these powers represented only the tiniest sliver of the things the Formers could do, that we could now do. How could they have grown bored with all of this? I could spend years doing nothing more than turning guys like Tanner Hughes into pantsweaters without getting tired of it. We reached the school's main entrance, which was unlocked and unmonitored. The Phatic security auras regulated who could come in or out, but our counterfeit auras told the door we were fully authorized to leave. Just like that, we were out of there. Tamrat and the others were being held at a police station in the East Village. Getting there was no problem. A quick peek at the new global data network told me that New York cabs had been fitted with a Phatic computer designed to read the security auras of anyone who stepped inside. But we all had tweaked ours to show that we were in good standing and had every right to be out and about. We hailed a cab, paid with an electronic transfer of fabricated money, and were on our way. When we'd first landed in Astor Place, I'd been too busy trying to escape and worrying about the well-being of our friends to really take in the details of life on conquered Earth. Other than the billboards and signs, and the images of Nora Price's face everywhere, things weren't that overtly different. I knew that the Fads wanted kids to go to school and adults to go to work, so if you didn't look too closely, it could have seemed like an ordinary day in an ordinary city. Now, I saw the fear on almost every face we passed. While we sat at a stoplight, I watched as a woman holding a toddler's hand trembled when a policeman paused to look at her. We drove past another set of policemen who were rounding up homeless people and tossing them into the back of a truck. The other major difference was the blue cylinder of light that rose up from the Empire State Building in Midtown. Dr. Roop had explained that Phatic colonies required massive infusions of power, and these came via some sort of subspace link with their home system, a kind of tunnel for energy instead of for transportation. I figured that's what I had to be looking at. Mi-san broke my train of thought by sending a message via my HUD. "I'm worried about my family." There was no way we were going to discuss anything important out loud in this cab. "Especially now that the Fads know we're on Earth. I get where Alice is coming from. I need to make sure everyone's okay." "I'm worried about my parents too," I messaged her. "But you heard what Dr. Roop said. The Fads will have nothing to gain by messing with our families once we're off-planet. Besides, we can't take them with us. Our best bet is to get rid of the Fads as quickly as possible." "I'm just going to call them," she said. She didn't need a phone to do it, and there was no way I could stop her if she really wanted to. But I felt sure it was a mistake. "No," I grabbed her wrist. It's too big a risk. Stick with the plan. She yanked her arm away from me. The plan to rescue your girlfriend? All your friends? You're the one who's tight with Steve and Dr. Roop, not the rest of us. Why is it that you get to call the shots? Maybe I'm closer to Dr. Roop than you, I told her. But he's still the only adult good guy we've got. And he knows what he's doing. He's the one who says not to contact anyone. Come on, me son. I get that you want to check on your family, but it's not the smart move. She snorted, but I could tell from her slackening expression that she was relenting. I told the cab driver to drop us off about a block away since we needed time to discuss our strategies. In part, I wanted to make sure the next time we were attacked, we had a system for who blocked and who counterattacked. Also, we needed to figure out what we were going to do once we escaped with our friends. Earth might be part of the Phatic Empire now, but there were relatively few Fads on the planet, and as far as I'd seen, no other aliens. Our associates were going to draw a lot of attention. Now what? Misun asked, crossing her arms and staring at me. Did you two get into a silent quarrel in the cab? Charles asked. I would never think to argue with our great leader, Misun said. He's always right, after all.
Okay then,
Alice said in an effort to be diplomatic.
Moving on, while you guys took care of the important bickering, I was doing some wireless research on the way over. It looks like the Fats don't want to mess with local economies, so they haven't taken over the airport. Most of the space traffic is moving in and out of Central Park. It's destroying the actual park, but they don't care about that.
Once we get everyone, we'll have to steal a van or something in order to get there, I said. And who's going to drive it? Misun demanded. You? I grinned. Steve.